All right, everyone. We're here to talk to the developers of the Training Post today. And today we have joining us Jeremy Fiesel, Jen Hauer, Crystal Tam, Tyler Newhouse, and Kenny McBride from the development team. And then you've got us, the community representatives, Liam, Randy, Bethany, and myself. And so here we're here to just talk about Trading Post, what you guys think. And then I guess to kind of kick off the discussion, I'll throw kind of an opening question to Jeremy. And do you have any, I guess, like, would you mind giving us a little bit of insight into some of like the original ideas and goals and like the driving force behind bringing the Trading Post to WoW?
For sure. So this was, number of months ago, as you can imagine, with any feature that has, this number of associated art assets. Is when we started discussing this. And I'd be interested in if Jen has a slightly different take on this than I do about like what the initial like driving idea was. What I remember is because there's always with a big feature, there's always a variety of different ideas that are sort of coming together to conglomerate to make what ends up becoming the feature. But what I remember during the time, one of our main goals, and this was like following a lot of the additions of customizations that we did in the Shadowlands, what a lot of people were enjoying. And we were talking at the time about how we were going to be revamping professions in 10.0. And that was getting us down the rabbit hole of like profession RP items, which ended up turning into a lot of the profession items that ended up added to the profession system that, let you put on a cool hat when you turn into something. We were having a lot of discussions about, players being able to show off their identity in game, right? Whether that's their transmogrification or other elements of the collection system, and the RP fantasy, and thinking about ways that we could really sort of give back to the community that are transmog enthusiasts, because we all really know what the end game of World of Warcraft is. It's what you're wearing. And so we started discussing, what was a way that we could give a wide variety of different new collectibles to players that could allow them to dress their character in wildly different ways that don't necessarily go down the lines of exactly what the storyline is doing right now. Like, what are ways that we can do some fun off-the-wall wacky RP things, but also give you a variety of different cloaks and give you, a bunch of different people have a variety of different things they want to get out of the transmog system. Everybody from, I want to dress like a cool knight to, I want to be in a Dark Moon Jester or into my Wendigo Woolies. So I think that, that got a lot of momentum because there's a lot of excitement there for just a variety of different things that you could do there. But I'd be interested if Jen had a different take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the beginning of Trading Post being about, right, like two different problems we were trying to solve. One was like, wow, there's so much of the world of Warcraft, and there's like so much fun stuff, playful, just screw around with people, fun stuff you can do. You don't always want to go into like raid or dungeons and stuff like that. Sometimes you want to just explore and have fun and do silly stuff. At least my guild does. That's one side. And then the other problem we're trying to solve is Kenny and the art team make so much incredible stuff that just like deserves a home and deserves to be out with our players. And so Trading Post kind of developed as a way to blend those two together, because transmog is everybody, right? Everybody, like it's one of the very few evergreen, is what we call it, like perpetual systems in WoW. It's not expansion dependent. It's not race or class or how you play, right? It's fun and it's cool and it's part of the game. So it came with these two different problems we were kind of trying to solve and brought them together and said, what if we just rewarded everybody for playing how they enjoy playing and develop this awesome, what we hope is an awesome system, and just put it out there and see what happens. I know, Kenny, when we first started talking about it, like often when we ask the art team, could you develop this or that, you guys go over and above creating amazing things in the mount specials and the FX and stuff like that. And one of the challenges on this was we said we want super cool, awesome things, but like common level, right? We don't want it always to be epic stuff. What do you think of that challenge?
Yeah. Transmog, the history of like customization and the things we offer in World of Warcraft is just hearing y'all talk about that just now takes me back to the evolution of what we've offered throughout the game. And to answer your question, what's interesting for us as artists is so often we would pitch something that was like, oh, it'd be really cool if I had like, you know, just a hood or an outfit or something to kind of like, you know, just express myself in a different way than, you know, I just slayed 1,000 demons, which is cool too. But there's kind of like this RP lower level aspect of fantasy that usually when we make content, it's for something that is specified to the story. Whereas the trading post has kind of opened up this opportunity for us to harken back to old things, current things, but also things that aren't necessarily part of the immediate narrative, which I think is a fun challenge for artists because we're like, oh, I'd love to make, you know, just this cool hood or, you know, a mount that isn't necessarily like grounded in a specific aspect of where the lore is going. So I think we like that as artists. The open box aspect of it is really awesome.
And at least for me, it sort of like piles on itself. For very early on, there was a debate as to would players really want flower corsages? And I was adamant that yes, I do not represent all players, but I want a flower corsage. And so could we please at least try to see whether players wanted flowers corsages? So as I'm sporting my flower corsage, which was of course the first thing I bought, I had to find my simplest black dress to set it off. Message to Kenny, could we please have more simple black dresses? Like it keeps piling on itself, at least for me.
For me as a player, I think a lot about how I'm not getting to do as much transmog collecting as I would otherwise because I'm so focused on what I consider to be, you know, like group play. Like I'm focused on doing battlegrounds and my arena team and maybe you know, making sure that I'm doing pet battle content or that sort of thing. And like all of the stuff I'm doing is sort of preventing me from getting the items that I'd really like to go get because I only have so much time. And I just really, really appreciated that this system was designed to reward me for playing the way I play. I can see it in others. I can see that they're you know, they're also doing their combination of things now and are earning some additional rewards that they didn't used to. I was curious about whether or not, maybe this is a question for Kenny, whether or not this is now prescriptive. Like, does the trading post open up some things that the art team wouldn't have really focused on in the past? Because now there's a place to get things into players' hands that you know, like I say, they might not have ever been trying for because of how they play.
Absolutely. As in my history of playing the game, even before I worked on WoW, I used to hang out with my friends playing the game and go, wouldn't it be cool if we added this? Oh, would it be cool if we added that? Just as like fans of the game and an artist. And then that mentality is still the same since I've worked with the character team for the last 10 years, is that hanging out with other character artists, other artists in general, everyone's always excited to add something to the game from an artistic perspective. Usually our goals are aligned with what we want to present as, you know, the narrative. But there's so often opportunities where we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we added this? But we're like, oh, we got to find a spot for that. And now I find that, yeah, we have all these ideas that kind of can have a home, if not in other places, where it's like, this would be cool to add. You know, Jen asked about like something more common, you know, like just a more low-level fantasy sword or the corsage. Those kind of things are ideas that our artists have always had in various ways. Whether it's, you know, a more casual NPC style outfit as opposed to a class-based outfit. those kind of things. So yeah, we have so many ideas, probably more ideas than we could ever make, and we're excited to get them in the game any chance we get.
Looks like Manny's got our first question of the day out there. What's going on, Manny?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about all the like different customizations that are coming. Obviously, transmog is something that everybody gets to play. There's mounts and there's pets, but I was wondering if there was going to be additional customization that we haven't seen yet. So new hairstyles or maybe tattoos, things like spell customization that might show up later on. Is there anything that is exclusively not the realm of the trading post?
I was going to see if Jen wanted to hit that one up first.
Sure.
Oh, but sure.
I'll take a pass, and then Jeremy and then Tyler, y'all should take passes at this one. I would love to see all those kinds of things, right? I mean, this is me, and there's however many WoW players there are here, there's like, we all play WoW differently. The one I want to change is on my yak mount. Those vendors, I want to change my vendors on my yak mount. Can we do that today? No. But Jeremy's heard me say it infinity times. And so hopefully maybe one day that will be something. Is trading post the way to do it? Maybe, right? So there's infinite ways things we could put in. In terms of things that we won't put in, I feel like as a WoW player, like things you earned because you got Gladiator, right? That'll never be there, right? That's not right, right? There's, ahead of the curve mounts or things like that. No, that's a pure system that we're not here to mess with. But in terms of just tricking out my personal experience, my personal expression, yeah, I hope.
It's like Jen mentioned, I think there's definitely a line for us that is anything that is earned that took skill and was earned during a particular period of time. We wouldn't want to, undermine the effort that people put into getting things like gladiator mounts or, challenge mode stuff. Other than that, there's a ton of ideas. I think we'd really like to hear from the community folks, especially now that the system is out in the wild. Like, we have a ton of stuff coming. This is an evergreen system in WoW, and we intend to bring you a brand new catalog every month. And we already have a ton of stuff made, but we'd love to hear, what other things do you want to see inside of the trading post? A couple of random ideas. Hey, we could, for folks that have the Brutosaur, what if you could get other Brutosaur colors through the trading post? That would be an idea. So that's an idea that's fairly locked to a subset of players, but could be interesting. The things like you're mentioning, like doing fun class specific things, awesome. That would be great to do. And yeah, it only fits a particular subset of the classes, but cool. We can have a couple of items that are like that every month. And I think we did have some discussion of sort of like base character customizations. Like recently, we've just updated some of the hair colors. I think that there was originally a discussion of, hey, should that be on the trading post, those hair colors? But they didn't feel like it. Felt like it should be an upgrade to the base game. And that's sort of the constant discussions we're always having. Is like, should this be a relatively limited thing, or should this just be an upgrade to that everybody gets? Similar discussion about, hey, was this the right patch to put in the white gray transmog stuff? And I think totally, right? So a great thing to add alongside a customization system that's more limited and more time limited is all of this other stuff that you can also get at the same time.
Looks like Orthalmus has got their hand up, and then Dinja after them. So if you want to respond to Jeremy's comments and then ask your whatever question you have.
Hi, yeah. So I'm a huge mount pet collector and toys. Like, I love doing that in game. It's basically what I play the game for. And the trading post has been awesome just to see new mounts coming back, and even some old ones too. So I guess one of the big questions I had is just, what's really on the table too for future stuff? Could we see like, old mounts come back? So like things like the Black Proto Drake or the Spectral Griffin, things that got removed, or could we even just see like low drop rate stuff that people have been going after for 6-7 years, like the famed invisible mount? I guess that's just basically my question is, what is it? Are we limiting the scope of the trading post to just new items, or could we see some old stuff coming back as well?
Tyler?
I can start on this. Yeah, so we have a lot of brand new mounts, recolors of mounts, a lot of which have been data mined already. As far as other old mounts that we might want to bring back, I think there is a line there, respecting whether it was there was an element of player skill in acquiring them back in the day, or if it was really sort of a you had to be there kind of mount. So that's Black Proto Drake would probably fall into that bucket. Whereas something like old Recruit a Friend mounts, or things that were otherwise time limited, but not related to player skill and not related to a super special event, those I think would be much more likely to turn up again.
I think there are some things that are like super inoffensive, like Celestial Steed. Totally. It's been on the shop for a really long time. Putting into the trading post helps it make it more accessible to a huge number of players that maybe didn't want to interact with the shop previously. Super cool. While when you're talking about like Invincible, that's a great question. I would love to hear from the community. Does it feel like it undermines, for some people, thousands of attempts at getting Invincible if you can just buy it for 500 attendees? Let us know.
Well, Din just got their hand up, so we'll go ahead and see if they want to venture the answer to that question.
I wanted to talk about one thing that I noticed, which is not about the mounts. Of course, the mounts are very, very nice addition to the trading post. But I noticed, well, of course, everyone noticed that the Warden set is now a thing. And this is a class that is not playable. But is there plans to add more sets like the Warden set, such as other class that are not available but are sort of a subclass, or sort of like things like that, like Mountaineers? We recently saw Dark Rangers become like a customization thing. So my question is just, are there more plans on subclasses?
I think it's a fun idea, and I think class-based rewards in the system is something that we for sure want to look into in the future. But as for, were we looking at this as particularly a subclass, like when we initially designed the armor set on the art side? I don't think so. It was more of, hey, let's make something cool. Let's start getting to the realm of cool ensembles that feel like they could fit everything from lore specific fantasies to things that don't exist in the game necessarily right now. So like the Wendigo Woolies, I think, is a good example of that from back at BlizzCon, because like that wasn't a thing in WoW, and then we added PJs, and then you get to kind of have a whole new subset of how you want to dress yourself. So I think we're just looking for like cool ideas essentially, and as they continue coming up, we'll keep at it. As sort of like Tyler mentioned, like this stuff has already been data mined, so there's we did go down the rabbit hole of like, let's think about a bunch of different outfits and ensembles that we could add to the game, and then also different sizes. And that's where I think it starts to get interesting. Like you can get ensembles that have 2 or 3 different things in them. They're not a full set, so that you can start kind of sub-customizing yourself. There's a swashbuckling one that feels very piratey. So I wouldn't think you would call that a subclass, but it certainly does fit a certain fantasy. And if you're a rogue, you may want to pick up a swashbuckling set and a couple of cutlasses, and maybe that fits the RP fantasy for your particular character. I think it would be interesting to discuss if y'all are feeling like there is a particular line there that you wouldn't want to cross. Is there a certain, like, there probably is class specific stuff where you would look at it and say, just like with the hair colors, this better belongs as a reward for doing class stuff in the game, or stuff like you wouldn't want to put Ashbringer on there probably because you want that to have lore implications and stuff like that. Just off the top of my head.
Looks like we've got Amber's got a question here, and we'll get you on the backside of that, Manny.
Yeah, just because the warden set was mentioned, I wondered if y'all might be able to answer a community question, which is, can that set be used by any race, or is it limited to certain races or classes?
I guess I can take that. It's currently a cosmetic set that anybody can wear. And I know one other follow-up to that, I know a lot of people have been concerned about Night Elf ears poking through the helm. And the only reason they're doing that is because the set hasn't been fully set up yet. So the plan is to fix that at some point.
All right, Manny, what was your question?
Yeah, I wanted to take a bit of time to respond to some of the stuff that you guys have actually said. In terms of mounts that are out there, I think that Invincible and mounts that came at a certain drop chance and then became less easy to get once it was no longer current content. I do think those are things that maybe shouldn't be on the shop. Like, you can still go out there and make your attempts. It does feel like it would undermine the how many attempts that people would make, much like some of the cosmetics that come off of rare bosses. Like end of tier, we get the Horns of Mammoth off of Garrosh, and I think those are certain things that, like, if you want that, going through that is still the way to go about it, and I wouldn't want to see that on the shop for 500. The other thing that you guys have put out there is, oh, like, what's the difference between like Dark Ranger customization versus this Warden set? And I think that there's place for both, and really it's kind of arbitrary what it is there. I think that when you do something that has like connection with the lore, that actually kind of elevates it a bit, rather than me just saying like, oh, I've got some extra coin left over and picking it up. So if you do something like the Dark Eyes that they did for the Night Elves, and that has a lore implication, that's great, but I could easily see something similar being done for another race thrown on the shop. So it's up to you guys, I guess. But my question to you guys is, are we going to know about stuff coming up on the shop other than data mining? Is there going to be a, hey, coming next week in March, here's some stuff, and people might say, okay, maybe I'll spend my tenders on this stuff before it goes out because the stuff coming up isn't that interesting, or vice versa?
So an answer you'll hear from us a lot is maybe. We've got exactly 8 days of it in players' hands, and we've had lots of thoughts on what to do. We're trying really hard not to have the full list of activities, the full list of rewards be all out there. I feel like that's not what we're trying to do. But yeah, we're gonna have to see, should we reveal the full set a couple days before? Lots of ways this has worked with other games, with other industries. That's what they do. I don't think we're going to do that in February to March. I don't think, unless Sam knows something I don't know.
I know we're looking at it. I wouldn't say we're definitely not. We're looking at it.
I would put it back to you. What do you think we should do?
I think that for particular things, it would definitely raise excitement. I think just because it is the initial fall through, there is that level of surprise. But for February, a lot of people who wanted to know stuff were able to see it on the PTR and know exactly what was coming, and it did raise excitement. I think that if I knew something was coming next week and it was something that I was excited for, I'd be like, okay, let me plan out time to play. But I also understand that there is people who aren't as engaged with the game that it's this fun showing up at the beginning of the month or whenever they log in and being like, oh, what's up for grabs this month? And I think that even if you put out the preview, it's not going to reach those players per se, but the people who are super interested will benefit from that.
Sure.
So one thing I'd add there, or Jennifer, sorry, did you want to give a response to that? I was just saying, we talked about, adding a preview a lot. A big concern for us was, as a player, are you worried about saving your attendees month to month? Is this going to turn into a stressful mini game that we don't want you to play? And so, now if we're showing you 2 months worth of stuff, sure, you can plan ahead for March, but then are you just asking yourself, well, what's in April? Like, have we really solved the problem there? So we didn't end up doing it for launch. But yeah, I am curious if having that one extra month, adds a comfort level without just punting the problem by 1 month.
I'm just gonna go back to that. I think, unfortunately, it's going to be player versus player. Some people will get anxiety of not knowing. Some people are going to get anxiety from knowing. I know that I'm not going to be able to answer for everybody. I've seen the stuff that's being data mined, and there's where I'm just sort of like, okay, I'm going to save, and hopefully that'll show up. And there's always going to be people who are like that, who are waiting for that golden thing. So I know I'm sort of out of turn, but the question would be, like, is there ever going to be something that costs more than you can get in a month? Because that will immediately cause people to start hoarding their tenders.
Probably not.
There was at one point in the design, though, and that ultimately resulted in us, instead of having a really, really expensive item, originally the monthly reward cat mount was a super expensive item that was essentially unaffordable for that month, and you had to save up for several months, and that didn't feel good. It felt like you didn't get to make a choice this month, and you basically just had to hoard all your points to get the cool thing that you wanted. And then we looked at that and we said, well, what if you just got that? And then you could also get some other stuff, which resulted in the monthly reward design.
Yeah, I just want to chime in really quickly on that note as well, kind of to Jeremy and Tyler's points. We did iterate a bunch on seeing how it felt having varying levels of items in that scrolling list, right? So we tested out, how does it feel if there's 20 to 30 items? How does it feel when there's a lot less? So the goal for launch was definitely to try a version that gave you just enough things to enable you to make good choices, and like Jeremy said, remove the biggest quote unquote coolest thing. So that's not something that you have to stress out about per se. But yeah, that's a balance that we're always kind of keeping an eye on to make sure that it feels good. We don't want it to be stressful.
And I'm going to do a big thank you to Crystal and the team for developing the preview. It's a freeze feature, right? You gotta love that.
Looks like Dinja's got our next question here, and just kind of an overarching thing. If for the community members, if you have any suggestions on cool things you'd like to see, I know we've talked about a few of the different subclass sets. If there's ideas or anything like that, this is a great time to kind of throw out ideas of stuff that you would like to see. Just if not now, when? But yeah, go ahead, Dinja.
Okay, so I actually have some suggestions. One of the things that I came prepared with was the new scarf sets, the ensembles of the scarves and capes. This month they all came in pink, but pink is not really my character's colors. I like the more brown, boring colors. So I was thinking, what if we could choose every month that you release this ensemble, that we could choose between the colors that is available, so you could mix it up a bit, maybe so that everyone didn't go around with the scarf, because as a role player, all I see now is the pink scarf. And of course, it's cute, but for me, I'm like, oh, I also want a scarf, but I can't wear it because it doesn't fit my my mog and my character. And my second one is druid forms, because druids spend an awful lot of time in their forms. as a druid main at the moment. Maybe getting some new forms. I mean, we got some cool looking unarmored bears in Dragonflight that I was like, oh, this would really fit my night elf. So yeah, I mean, maybe that is my suggestions.
I can respond to your first comment about adding multiple color options each month. So I am trying to do that as I'm slotting things into the catalog to some extent. So we had 2 of those bandoliers in the first month. Since those are slightly more expensive, you might only want one color. So if we have the gold one this month and then the red one next month, you're more likely to kick yourself if your preferred color was offered later. And so that's something you're probably going to continue to see going forward with similar items. For something like the cloaks, which are they're at the cheapest end of the spectrum. It's less of an investment if you just want to buy those every month. I think it is an interesting idea to let you pick from an assortment. But at the same time, it takes up a lot of catalog space. It's not something we would never do, so maybe. And yeah, I don't think you'll have to wait too long for other colors.
Looks like we sparked some discussion in the chat there about different reskins. Penguin Moonkin being my personal favorite in the chat so far, but looks like Ortho's got the next question up here.
Yeah. So I guess one of the discussions I wanted to have is like, I want everything. I love the weapon or all the new cosmetics, all the mounts, all the pets. It's like, oh, I want it all. But there's a limited currency we have every month. I think it's about 1,000 that we get to spend. And if I only wanted the mounts, it definitely limits what else I can get. So I guess just a couple questions is just what is there any kind of, apart from the freeze feature, anything to help prevent FOMO or the fear of missing out? Could we see these items return that are in this month's trading post? And will there be additional ways to earn the tender currency if we wanted like 4 or 5 things that are in a given month?
I think, yeah, Tyler, this is yours.
Sure. Yeah, I'll start with your question about returning items. Yeah, we definitely want to bring items back from the back catalog. As far as exactly how we're going to do that, we're still thinking about it. So looking at a combination of player data, so we can see what you guys are buying. So if X months from now, we're deciding what to bring back, maybe we bring back a handful of the coolest stuff that people clearly wanted. Maybe some people missed out, so we give you a second chance. Yeah, as far as the time frame on that, and how many items are we bringing back, and so on, it's something we need to think about. I think that would be a really cool place for more community involvement too. So whether it's just watching Reddit posts or whatever, or the community team runs polls to ask which top items you want to bring back. I think that could be a fun way to do it. Yeah, we definitely don't want you to feel like you never have another shot at these items. And yeah, on the additional attendees question, I would punt to Jeremy or Jennifer.
Sorry, I was just about to cough. Jen, did you want to hit that one up, or did you want me to?
Yeah, in terms of additional attendees, we're looking at how players are using it, how much players are using, right? This is, it's been in development for a long time, but we're just now getting player data back to see how much are people spending, how willing are people to go to zero, how much do people think they need to hoard, how much are we hearing people say, I wish we could have bought everything. And you know, we're going to be evolving and would love your feedback back. So we've got lots of ideas on ways we could continue and make sure that FOMO doesn't become ever present and squash the fun here. And we need you to tell us when we're getting close to that line, or if we've already crossed it.
Looks like we've got kind of a comment question in chat. I'll go ahead and read out. It's from Zelen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I really appreciate the adding cosmetic armor sets and items that anyone can use. I hope in the future that more items would always be cosmetic. And are there any plans to add armor sets based off NPCs and making those cosmetic? From a roleplay angle, there are a lot of items that players would want to use, but they can't, but really can't depend it on class. And oftentimes NPCs are from different armor types to begin with. It really limits someone's potential ability. That cosmetic items really fix that issue.
Yeah, I think that's one of the powerful parts of the system is that through the power of various different role play sets, like, yeah, we can break some of the rules, like you get with the Warden set, which is usable by everybody. So we're going to continue, feeling that out. I think that it's also important that armor type continues to have a meaning within WoW. I think that there's many years of precedent in history for various different classes having specific aesthetics on the artistic side of things. So I think you'd be a little bit wary of like making every single thing on there cosmetic, because then you're also losing a little bit of, hey, it's cool that I can look at the male things for my male wearing characters and plate things for my plate wearing characters. It feels a little different. And it makes for the players that main those characters have a little bit different of an experience, and you would lose that if we went to a world where everything was cosmetic. Those are just some of the considerations. But I think that, yeah, we're looking for opportunities to give players a way to, for lack of a better term, dress like their favorite other NPCs in the game, like you were mentioning. Are there any particular NPCs that you were thinking of where you're like, I really want that armor set, and I've never been able to get it?
Yeah, I want to add to that. As I'm hearing the conversation, we're all talking about this stuff in the chat. I just want to do a shout out to like, what is your favorite transmogs? What do you all want to see? What would be really cool for you as players that you feel like you haven't been able to tap into, or what do you want more of? From an artistic standpoint, we're always churning ideas, and I scour the internet. I go all over the internet to get various opinions and ideas. But now that y'all are here in front of us today, I would love to hear from you all what kind of things y'all look for.
Well, Manny's got his hand up, so we'll go ahead and see if he's got anything to offer in that regard, and whatever else you got.
Sorry about that. I think, like I just said in chat, there are certain NPCs that have very unique looks, even though they are very much like a class or representative of a class. So Thrall and Kata had those robes that there's not been anything that other shamans have been like. We have Jaina, who has her Admiralty clothes, and like I know a bunch of people would love to have that. So if there are things that could fall from that, that would be great. Also, I would love to see some stuff that is sort of themed. Like if you are having a month that is like close to the 30th anniversary or of like Warcraft in general or something, you could do something that is like a throwback. Or each year we have the 17th, 18th, 19th birthday of WoW, and maybe the trading post has something themed where it's like grabbing from the past, so you can look like an Eridar if you're a Draenei, and that becomes available, where you don't have to do a big lore reason for it. We can just add that customization in. And I know, of course, there are things that will be out there, and it's really whatever people are talking about, and the artist maybe has enough time, because as much as we can always ask for it, sometimes you guys are just crunched for time doing other things, and coming up with something out of whole cloth is very hard. But people have put in chat stuff like customization for warlock pets, because we have all these different versions of the same warlock, and putting that into the store wouldn't be that hard. Totems for shamans or elementals for shamans. We have like Pandarian elementals, having that as a glyph or whatever for shamans would be something I would personally love. But I also want to know, what is the realm of like the shop versus like the black market auction house? Like, what makes something go to the BMAH versus show up on the tenders?
It's something we've been having a discussion about fairly recently. We'd have to pull up the last email thread I have on it to get you the exact details. Because like you're saying, like there's significant overlap. And it is kind of cool if there are other ways to get trading post items that could show up in either location. There's some strategy there. So I think that's fun. But we're gonna have to, there's also the element of wildly different costs on the black market auction house. So I think, you know, we'd have to do some fairly significant discussion there about exactly what we wanted to do. But I think the BMAH is going to continue to serve its function as the, you know, location where you can get a lot of those thing that existed in game that was, you know, rare and difficult and is now obtainable. And I think that, you know, we need to be careful about moving things from that space over into the very easily accessible space, which it turns out the trading post is, and it's great. And it's entirely intended to be that. I think you wouldn't want to devalue a number of those things that, you know, people maybe spend millions of gold on.
Looks like Dinges had their hand up for a minute here.
Yeah. I mean, as role players, and well, we always have suggestions for what you can add as gear, cosmetics, mounts. I mean, it's all we ever talk about. How, oh, I wish we had more suitable night elf gear, more cloth gear that looks sort of platey, instead of just going into battle with a full-on robe, stuff like that. And I know a lot of my like fellow role players, we role play all day, but a lot of us don't have casual wear to sort of walk around in the city with, because realistically you wouldn't want to walk in your heavy armor all day. And that is something I miss too, being able to dress my character up in different kinds of sets, because these days everyone kind of use the same sets and same pieces. So when this new, with a lot of the things I've seen on the trading post, I can see a lot of opportunity with how much more can be added here. And believe me, we will never stop like wanting more. That's one of the things about us. You can't give us enough, because we love being able to customize our characters to the way they act. We go into depth on their entire stories, so having the suitable mogs for it is very important as well. So my only like suggestion there and comment is that cloth, normal, more average gear, not always the glowy things. I don't really prefer the glowy things. I used to, but now I'm more like, my Tauren is all bony, and the use of the heritage armor, you know, gotta go with the cultural style of the Tauren. And yeah, I guess that's all I really have to add. And customization for druid forms. But yeah.
Yeah, all the customization ideas are great. I think that those are all definitely things that we want to look into. And I think that, I mean, what you're talking about is essentially one of the main pillars of this feature is like, hey, let's add common items and uncommon. I mean, like white and green rarity items, and task our art teams with coming up with, you know, cool low level things, you know, stuff that you would find on a new adventure. So we've got tons of assets coming down the pipeline, and I think we'll be able to get you covered there.
On the topic of role playing, there, I just want to draw attention to Zelen's comment in chat there, just that they're really popular one that a lot of role players do are guards, members of certain factions. If you're someone who plays a mage and you want to look like a guard of the Night's Watch, you can't really live out that fantasy the fullest. So I think there's a lot of value in that comment as well. I just want to draw quick attention to that. And then it looks like Ortho has their hand up next.
Yeah, I wanted to add some other ideas too. I think more weapon illusions is great. I'd also like to see hunters get some weapon illusions, hopefully on their arrow. I know it's been a long requested feature. Definitely +1 for druid forms, but I would really love to see like toys that do more transformation effects, like getting a toy that turns you into one of the dragonkin in Veldraken. That would be awesome. I'd love to see stuff like that. One of the questions I did want to ask though, and this kind of goes back on the idea of returning rewards, the special reward that we get every month, is that something that is going away, or will we see those potentially return as well? I don't know if they would be treated differently than the other items on the catalog.
I think our tentative plan there, again, sort of a maybe response is, we would bring back Ashadar. I don't know if it'd be this year or not, but bring it on with the rest of the back catalog items, and it would probably be priced where you would expect a mount to be. So yeah, it wouldn't be another free reward, but you would have another chance to acquire it.
Yeah, I don't think like get it now or forever gone is the point of that. I think it's supposed to be something cool you work towards this month, and but it's not a once and done thing. So yeah, come back at some point. I see a question in the chat about are there more things added that haven't been data mined? I hope so. I hope you haven't like figured out all our secrets. Like maybe.
But also, this is an evergreen system. We're going to continue adding to it every month, which means that we have tasks on into the future already for art assets and other cool stuff, because it's how far ahead the art teams work. So yeah, we have a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe that you haven't seen yet because it's not data mining.
Before we get to the next question, just want to let everybody know we are approaching the hour mark. So if you've got any questions you've been waiting to ask, make sure you are ready to get those in here as we start to wrap things up. And Manny.
Yeah, thank you again, guys. Obviously the trading post, people are loving it from what I've been experiencing. One of the things that people are a little worried about, of course, is the FOMO. Have you considered things rotating out at a slower pace? So instead of it being there for a month, some things will be there starting this month and rotate after 2 months. And so there'll be an overlap of things. And then along that on a completely different tangent, as I've been going to the shop day after day, there's been like little NPCs that'll come out and they'll have their little scenarios asking for something. And those have been great. They're just characters that are coming back from past expansions, making the world seem alive. Are we going to see something more of those being added? Is there a chance that those might lead to other experiences? Like I'm looking at you, Jeremy Friesel, wondering if we're looking at secrets here. And is more going to come from the shop than just simply cosmetics? Might there be something that is not like power system, but just gameplay that arrives from just hanging out?
So I think we've got a bunch of cool ideas there. For example, hey, what if, you could get something from the shop that had a little bit more to it, a quest that it could fire off, like the items quest giver that you get within the game. That has potential. I think you always bring up the question though of, is this something that should be missable and should be rotational, or should this be something that is just broadly more accessible to everybody? Oftentimes when we have added, especially like questing content, and then removed it or made it inaccessible, we ended up regretting that decision and then, you know, making it accessible in some other format in the future. Because you don't want people to miss out on major chunks of content within the game and lore and things like that. But on the other side of things, like the idea of, hey, could we have more visitors showing up? Could those have some gameplay associated with them? Could one of those periodically have a quest that eventually leads you on some cool secret trading posts? Awesome. I think those are all super cool ideas. This particular round was worked on by it was a passion project by one of our quest designers who just wanted to add a little bit more life to the world. I thought he did a great job. So hopefully we get you know, a little more time to work on some of those in the future too, because I think those are also super cool. I guess I can also springboard this a little bit into the trading post is really a part of this roadmap that we've got for World of Warcraft for this year, right? That includes a bunch of major updates to the game that are going to be refreshing systems sort of all over the place. And one of the big ideas here is just to have more things going on in Azeroth. And I think you see that with the trading post showing up in Stormwind and Orgrimmar and having elements from the game kind of flowing into it out of it. And hopefully that makes some of our major cities outside of the Dragon Isles feel like they're part of more like a living and breathing Azeroth. That's the goal here, right? So even if you don't see particular additions to the trading post that fit with that goal, you know, I think our goal is for Azeroth itself to feel like a little bit more of a living world, and this is just one example of that. So I hope people are enjoying it, and I hope that it's fulfilled that goal.
While we wait on any other questions to maybe trickle in, I guess I'll pose a question to the devs here, and I guess do you guys have any like interesting like behind the scenes sort of info that like, you know, isn't necessarily like, you know, maybe something that happened during the development process, or maybe something that was just kind of a fun story, or, you know, a fun hurdle that you guys had to like clear that isn't necessarily apparent to, you know, the final product?
I got one that I'll share related to that. If you guys want to go pet my dogs, you can go to the Orgrimmar trading post. That the development team offers the team offers developers the opportunity to have a character in game. And I asked, my time came up, and so I asked if I could have mine standing overwatch for the Orgrimmar trading post. And the person who put it in put my dogs standing next to me. So you'll see Rips and Yu. Rips is the golden retriever, and Yu is the little white fluffy dog, standing sort of off by the stable master. And maybe not surprisingly, I was standing watch on the day we launched in org, watching people go through. And of course, one of the quests is love a trading post pet. And so people thought that my dogs were pets. And so literally hundreds or thousands of players were going by /love Rips /love Yu. And so thank you.
Looks like Zelen posted another question to chat. In terms of the reward structure, how do you decide on what variety of items that you are adding each month? What sort of items do you plan out for that special monthly reward versus this should be something people can buy out of the shop? I'd also like to see if there could be a few more item freezes, which I think would help out with the FOMO feeling without necessarily overwhelming players. And then Ortho also commented about FOMO protection.
Sure. I can talk about how we're adding items. So yeah, and also I guess just talking a little bit about the background of the work we did before launch here. So I had to dig through thousands of old unused item appearances, a lot of art that was just never hooked up in data at all. And so we have a massive catalog of stuff we can pull from now, and slot in for every month alongside all of the new stuff that the art team has made for us. So as I'm doing that, I'm trying to get a good balance of kind of the lower fantasy and versus high fantasy stuff. So we have Fire Flail at the one end, and then the old Exile's Reach hammer at the lower end, things like the cloaks. So we have trying to balance along that axis, as well as, making sure that, all classes have, something. In any given month, you might not have as many items to pick from for your main as somebody else, but over the course of time, it should average out. As far as the special monthly reward, and I guess this also for the base catalog too, we're also thinking about what matches the theme when possible. So for this first month, we have Love is in the Air, so added the flower corsage, a flower bouquet, and some pink items. And a lot of these items weren't made with those themes in mind. So we're matching where we can, but not always going to. As far as the special monthly rewards, so a big part of our thinking there was we want to take away as much FOMO as possible by just giving you the thing that you were going to feel forced to buy anyway. Because that's that was, if we put Ashadar as something that you had to choose to buy, it's going to feel like a fake choice for a lot of players. You're just going to feel like you have to buy it, and that's just not fun. So as we're going through in most months, it's not always going to be amount, but we're typically aiming to make the thing that we think players would feel is the must-buy item your monthly reward. But yeah, there's going to be a variety of stuff in that slot coming up.
And I don't think we're wildly planning on changing the number of mounts and pets, or at least the total cost per month for mounts and pets. We wouldn't want, for example, 2,000 tender hello cat worth of pets to show up in a month, because that would just feel bad for pet battle collectors.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be one mount, one pet per month, but generally items occupying that price space. So yeah, we're not going to offer 5 things that cost 900 or 750 even. So
I want to speak a little bit to the question about the freezing slots, because I think this actually ties in really nicely. We wanted to start out with just one freezing slot because the goal of that part of the experience was, above all, we wanted to be kind of a convenience. We didn't want it to be something that players felt like, oh, I really need to save this freeze slot because everything's so expensive. I don't have enough tender to buy the things that I want. So while we kind of designed the UI of the overall catalog to be flexible, I think the whole system, we kind of designed it to be flexible so that we could play with things and try things, respond to feedback. I think the goal of trying to say evergreen is we want to try to stay away from making players feel like they have to rely on any specific part of the UI, and that includes kind of the freeze slot. We want it to keep it so that it feels good, a good shopping experience. We don't want you to feel like, oh, I need to find ways to freeze more things, because I think if we ever get to that point, then we need to look back at the balance of the items. So while it's a possibility, of course, it's something that at least for launch we wanted to just be a convenience overall.
Looks like Manny's got his hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on a question about the freeze. Can you freeze the same item for multiple months? So this month I freeze the flail, the Fireland one, and then next month something else shows up and I'm like, oh, I gotta buy that. So can I then keep that frozen, move it into the next month? And then the other question along the lines of what you guys have been asking, or saying rather, you guys have been saying that you want to keep the amount of mounts and pets relatively the same. Is that true for the general offering of items? Are we going to see generally around about 15 items offered each month?
I guess I can start there, with the number of items. So yeah, so 15 for roughly the amount of total attendees that they cost. that's our starting place, our our best guess at what would feel good for players. If it turns out that we were a little bit off the mark, we could always add more or take away just to make the choices feel more meaningful. Yeah, at one point in the iteration of this, we started with 30 something items, and everybody in the playtest just felt completely overwhelmed. I wanted to give people the choice to buy each individual item in an ensemble. So you had 8 slots and you could choose whether or not to buy the wrists. And people said that felt awful. And I thought I'd be clever and split them up over 2 months so you could feel like you're collecting it over time, and it was universally panned. So now you buy the whole ensemble.
Yes, to your question about if you can hold something month over month, the goal for that is like you can just slot it in there and you can just hold it indefinitely until you either replace it with something else or when you buy it. So
an earlier version, Tyler's talking about 30 items in the shop. There was a version where a new item came in every day and a new item left every day. That was really early on. That was also universally panned. Also sounds like a bad idea now that it comes out of my mouth, but it's a process.
All right, we've got about 10 minutes or so before we officially wrap things up here. So make sure if you've got any lingering questions out there, make sure to chime in with that. And Dinja mentioned in chat different styles of dresses and cloth mogs, less robes, coats. Just throwing out suggestions before time is up. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So if you've got a whole bunch of ideas, feel free to spam them in chat here before we finish things up. And then kind of while we're, waiting on any other questions that trickle in there, I'll just ask generally, is there any, and I may already know the answer, I guess, but is there any like specific process behind the scenes for items, or are there any like specific reasons, or is a lot of it just kind of like, this is cool, we want to do it? I don't know if there's like some sort of like, voting items off the island sort of, behind the scenes sort of procedure.
Annie, do you want to tackle that one? How did we decide what we decided to make?
Yeah. What you currently see versus what is, behind the scenes still is, a catalog of things to be shown. But as we come up with things, it's kind of this, I'd hate to like boil it down to such a simple thing, but like, yeah, as artists, we're like, is that cool? Would we love to see that in WoW? And that's where a lot of ideas do start. Then we'll start digging through like, oh, I have this one character, I wish it had more transmog, or I have a friend in my guild who, does this kind of thing. It'd be really sweet if we did this. And we have these kind of conversations that we collectively have as character artists. And we just feel like players and fans at that point. We're like, oh, what if someone added this game? Wait, we work here, we can make this. And it kind of boils down to that. So I would say at its core is it cool? And would we be passionate about making it? Would we be passionate about seeing it as the collective part of World of Warcraft? And then from there, it kind of gets tailored through conversations with various people to kind of say, hey, we already did something like that, or hey, we don't have enough of this, or the kind of comments that I'm taking notes, by the way. Everything y'all said, I've been kind of cataloging of. This is the sentiment we're getting from the community, and I consider that greatly too. Like I said, I comb the internet, if not just seeing what people are wearing in the game, or just talking to people at work. So yeah, it's kind of a chaotic passion process, I would say, at least in the beginning.
I think we had a gut sense when we made the initial giant spreadsheet, because it always starts with a giant spreadsheet of, here's about the stuff that we want to make. It's about this many mounts, about this many pets. It's going to be kind of about this many of these types of armor sets and stuff. And that also helps guide a little bit of that discussion and puts a box around, hey, we want to create something cool for each class. We want to create something cool for each armor type. We want to make sure that we hit up both class fantasy things, serious things, funny things, RP things. We sort of had all these different boxes that we wanted to check, and then you sort of slot ideas and items over into the different boxes, and eventually you come out of it with an effective production pipeline. Hopefully. We did.
And before we get to Manny's question, Ortho in chat says, could you please give the community a sneak peek at the March rewards? Figured I would try.
Yeah, I'm hearing that loud and clear. This feedback, this is exactly what we need. The idea that people are holding off spending their attendees because they're worried, that's not good, right? We want this to be something that you earn and use and have fun with, and earn and use and have fun with. So I'm hearing that loud and clear, and we're gonna definitely go back and have conversations about, is this the right month to do that? What do we want to do? How would we do it? Can we do it? Right, all those things.
How far out would you guys want to see the next month if we were to do a preview? Like, is a week enough time? Is a day enough time? What feels good?
Well, people can answer that in chat, or if you've got another question, feel free to do that. And then Manny's got his hand up. So if you want to, address that specifically, Manny, go for it. In addition to whatever you were going to ask anyway.
Yeah. For me, I would say just 1 week ahead, really at most. If you go 2 weeks, it feels like you're kind of eating the previous month's hype. And obviously within that time, most people should be able to say, okay, I'm gonna purchase, or I'm gonna hold off. But one thing I wanted to know was, like, what is the rough idea that you guys have for people completing this? If they are, because I've had people who are really like, okay, I'm gonna hammer this down, and they've gone through the track in like an hour or so of game time. And I've had people who didn't even know it existed, and they're like, wait, what? Why did I get this mount? Why did this show up? Because it's just a natural part of doing the game. But like, what is the kind of goal that the team had for people finishing this course? And then I also had a suggestion afterwards.
We didn't have a specific like target of like this percent of players we want. Instead, we were designing something that was trying to be accessible for everybody. So is it a success if 100% of players get the mount in a month? Kinda, yeah, right? I mean, to me, maybe not to somebody else, but to me, it's like, yeah, that's kind of super cool. If everybody burns through it in 2 hours, that's probably less cool. Probably need to go back and do some design stuff. I think I said this earlier, like, everybody plays WoW differently. And you're always going to have your min-maxers who see a new goal and are like, I need to burn through it and get it. We're looking to see what that variability is, but I think we're doing pretty well. I think. I question, show of hands, maybe who has earned the mount this month already? I got mine last night. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. 2 to 3 days. Nice. First hour. Wow. Wow. Cool. You're more efficient than I am.
I had a question from Dana in chat. I know that they got in here a little bit later. So this already may have been discussed, but is there a chance we'll see some of the NPC clothes on the trading post, like the Kultiris hats added to the Trial of Style rewards?
I'd say there's definitely a chance. It's not as easy as just adding them, since a lot of NPC clothes like that weren't made to fit all races, so it takes a lot of extra work. But yeah, a lot of people really like the Kultiran armor, and I do too.
And hitting up a couple questions from earlier, or comments from earlier, like, I think this is another opportunity for us to explore the sort of non-traditional, what we would call geosets, or different ways that armor sits on you, things like scarves, shawls, corsages. The way the dress flows on the Warden armor set is different than some of our previous robes in the game. Sort of our opportunity to explore a little bit with that space, and like you were asking for, like, we should be looking for, yeah, like different dress types. And with the ultimate goal here is player expression, what all do you want to see? Please let us know.
And it looks like Manny's going to be our last question, assuming there's no one else out there that sneaks one in right before the end here. So go ahead with your question, Manny.
Yeah. Every year you guys have a student art contest, and these students like make some beautiful things. One of them actually made into the game, the Dark Moon carousel. There are pets, there are mounts, there are sometimes they do like cool outfits. Is there a chance that maybe going in the future, you could consider putting those into the Trader's Post? But I'm not going to hold you to it though. Just to, would it be considered?
I mean, at this point, I think that we're considering any kind of fun idea. And we always look forward to the student art contest. And I think oftentimes we also end up hiring those people, so then they get to come onto the team and make the cool thing. There was an example of that recently. Can you probably remember?
Yeah, one of our artists, Natasha, I think her student art contest had a ferret, and then she worked on a ferret-like mount internally. As far as the student work that they actually do for the contest is stuff that we can't use as art for in-game, but when we do bring those people onto the team, they become part of the community of artists that, you know, contribute to what we make and the ideas and what ultimately goes into the game. So those ideas from those individuals ultimately become part of the ecosystem, which in a way is added to the game.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it here for our conversation today. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for making time in their day and showing up and having this conversation. Really enjoy doing this whenever the time presents itself. I thought Trading Post would have been a great place to have a more in-depth discussion and discuss a lot of the, you know, potential that, you know, that the community is looking for, and then kind of what goes on behind the scenes with the devs. So there will be more of these sorts of chats in the future. So looking forward to those.
Yeah, thanks for coming and chatting with us, all y'all. Really appreciate all of your ideas and enthusiasm for the system, and can't wait to show you what we've got looking forward in the future.
It was awesome hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
And have a
Thank
fantastic
you.
Wednesday.
Bye.
Thanks again, everyone.